Frank Yosa here, CEO of Ketone, and today I'm going to talk about the ketone salts versus the ketone ester and better explain the ketone salts and many secrets that you won't hear on any blog post. We're going to talk about things about how the ester is actually less expensive than the ketone salts, which is unfathomable to people. I'm going to talk about the salt load and the benefits that that might have for certain people, marketing tricks that these ketone salts companies try to use. Talk about racemic, it's a hot topic, hot debate, the racemic nature of these salts, and also how all exogenous ketones, the salts and the ester, actually stops endogenous ketosis, actually stops your body from burning fat initially. So that's the exact opposite of what you might have heard in hundreds of different videos. So let's first start with, why is there a salt version of the ketone and why is there an ester? And why is one much more expensive, was known or thought to be more expensive? So the ketone salt, the ketone itself, beta hydroxybutrate or beta hydroxybutyric acid, is a ketone that is acidic, too acidic to drink it by itself. It would burn a hole in your gut. The pH is way too low. So you have two options in the chemistry world to bring that pH up. One is to add a base to it to make it into a salt form. So you can add potassium, sodium, magnesium, calcium, and that will raise the pH and it buffers the acid so that the pH is manageable. So every molecule of acid, they attach a molecule of sodium or potassium, one of those four, and then raises the pH and then makes it so that you can consume it. Now, the downside is the massive salt load and the small amount of ketones that you can actually get from a serving. And then you have something called ketone esters, which initially Dave Asprey spent $25,000 for one serving. It's extremely hard to make. And what that is the word ester kind of means a molecule which is a bond of two molecules, so the acid, and in this case, it's a bond of D13-butadiene, which we can get into later, but basically that is a molecule that in the liver makes its own ketones, similar to MCT, but many multiples more. So you have the beta hydroxybutrate ketone side, which is part of the molecule that then the molecule goes into the body as BHB and into the blood. And then you have the second half of it, the D13-butadiene, that then also makes the round two, the second round of ketones and BHB in your blood. So let's go back to the salts. So for the last 5 years, there are like 40, 50 different companies. 95% of them are all selling the same thing, and half of them are all repackaged marketing of the same company that's reselling the stuff. So let's go through some of the things you need to know. So the salt load on these products are just massive. So here's Keto Sport, and with ketogenic diet, people love the ketogenic diet because they lose 5 pounds in a few days and wow, this is amazing. But then they find out that they're only losing 5 pounds of water. The way that it works in non-scientific terms, sugar holds on to a lot of water molecules, and once you starve yourself of carbs, it just flushes out tons of water, 5 pounds of water. But with that 5 pounds of water is a massive amount of salt that's lost. I've seen people go to the hospital, and I said, "Oh, did you guys go to the hospital? Let me guess what happened. It was determined that it was low sodium, right?" And they said, "How did you know what happened to us when we went to the hospital?" And sure enough, massive salt losses. So you're supposed to take massive amounts of salt. And I know this firsthand. My wife was getting into the ketogenic diet. She's done this twice now. And she was on the bed, the keto flu, you can Google that. And she was shivering and having racing heart and what is going on with, what's going on? And ultimately we had to give her a massive amount of salt. And within 15 minutes, she was up and fine. When I say massive amounts of salt, people aren't comfortable taking, dozens of these pills, and they'll think, "Oh, well, more salt. Okay, I'll put more on my eggs or bacon." And I'm vegan, so it's more like on the broccoli. We're not talking about that amount of salt. We're talking about a lot of salt. So one of the benefits of the ketone salts is you just get a massive amount of salt. So here you've got 1.6 grams of sodium and 1.6 grams of potassium. Let me show you what that is in pill form. That's 16 of these, potassium pills. I don't know if you can see that. And then 8 of these pills here to be, 20, 25 pills. And that's of, potassium citrate or, one of these thermotabs, just massive amounts of pills. Who's going to take 20 pills? They won't do that. Well, they'll take 1 serving of a ketone salt and lo and behold, they feel better. So I've always wondered, the people that are taking these ketone salts for the ketogenic diet, it's the salt that's probably giving them, more benefit, because the amount of ketones that they're actually getting is so minuscule. And, you can test your blood levels and yeah, you might jump from a 0.3 to a 0.7, just, these minuscule jumps. And some people will even, their body can withstand taking 2 of these. So like 6 grams, 2 servings, 6 grams of salt. It's just a massive, massive salt load. And, that's between you and your doctor, what you think is the amount of salt that you need. Do you need all of this? Do you need the, 3.2 grams? And that's for, most of these. You got here sodium 400, calcium 700, magnesium 285, and then I think there's no potassium in this one. So just massive amounts of salt. So I question whether the benefit that people are feeling is the lack of salt. So, one thing you could try is just go and buy some cheap, salt tablets and see if that does the same for you. So the limitation of the ketone salts is also how much ketones it can deliver. So, one of these servings says, 11,000 milligrams. I love it when they put thousands of milligrams as opposed to just putting, 11 grams. And it says Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the companies that sells to all or many different products will have Go BHB in them. They say, oh, it's the premium ketones, all these patent pendings. First of all, there's no patents on ketone salts. Don't be confused by the marketing. There is, a patent technically on mixing MCT oil and ketones. And I can, talk to you about the benefit of doing that in one drink versus doing it separately. But it'll say that it has 11 grams. So we're now going to talk about this racemic concept and what that is, because basically only half of this 11 grams can be used. So you're talking about 5 or 6 grams of ketones, which is just a minuscule amount. Again, now some people can take 3 or 4 servings if they're an athlete that's going to be on a 100-degree day and they're sweating a whole bunch. They can do it, but other people taking massive amounts of salt will just, to get more ketones, will just make them running to the bathroom. Meanwhile, the ketone ester, we have here the KE4 ketone ester. 1 serving is 30 grams. You can take up to 75 grams a day. Well, that's, the equivalent of like 11 bottles of these. So people say, do the ketone salts work? I don't know. If your doctor told you to take 10 Advil and you say, oh, well, how about just 1? Does it work? Well, for some people, I guess. And for some people that the ketone salts do work, I actually say, well, you can just take, 4 to 5 grams of ester and see if that works the same for you. So 1/5, 1/6 of a serving might do the same for you. So this concept of racemic. So Dr. Veach made an epic comment on a Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey podcast. And he said that, he wouldn't touch the racemic salts with a 10-foot pole. And he said this for, going back to papers 20, 30 years ago. He talks about racemic, how you shouldn't go down that path. And there's some debate whether it's, bad or not. But let me explain 2 different components of the racemic debate. One is debatable and one, just isn't. Let's go into the one that isn't. So every molecule has a D form and an L form. Sometimes it's referred to as R and S just to make things really confusing. But in the ketone world, the D is what the body can use. Now, sometimes you might hear of L-tryptophan or L-dopa. That happens to be the L form. One's not better than the other, just the body can use one or the other. So L-dopa happens to be the L form. The ketone is the D form. So all of these products are, for the most part, except for one, I'll show you, are racemic. So it has the D form and the L form. Well, that makes it much less expensive to manufacture. So they're just selling both of them. But one of the major problems, and this shouldn't be something that's debatable, is that the L form is also still acidic. So you have to put the same amount of salt on the L form to balance out the pH. So here you are with 11 grams of ketones, but only half of it is the D form that your body can use that's bioavailable. And then you have this L form that you can't use, but you still have all this acid, so you have to dump in all the salt. Okay? So there's only one company right now actually, no, I think there is a small company on Amazon that sells these microscopic, 3 grams. So it's not epically, but much more expensive because they're selling really small servings. But it's the Prove It Max. And they used to actually say Biomax on there, but then they took out the bio. Why did they take out the bio? I don't know, but the bio stands for bioavailable. And here, it's actually kind of interesting. It does now, the newer ones, but they didn't say in the older ones that these are non-racemic. Why? I think they, I don't know, maybe they don't want to have to explain all the racemic stuff that they're selling and, what that is. And, this is better, but then they don't want to be saying that something else, that they're selling might not be good. So when people ask me about, ketone salts, because, the benefit is that they taste better. You may or may not like these tastes, but it tastes nothing like the ketone ester. Ketone ester tastes, it's like a shot of tequila or a shot of ginger. It's nothing like that. So I tell people, if you're going to buy one salt, throw everything else away and buy the ketone, the Max from Prove It. I'm not an MLM seller. I don't make any money off of it. It is a multi-level marketing system, and some people don't like that. But regardless of whether or not you like that, that's the best ketone salt that's out there. Now, so the part that you can't debate is half of the salt load, so you can take twice as much ketones and get the same amount of salt, or you can cut your salt load in half and keep the salts at a certain number. Now, one thing that's really confusing is, so this one says 11 grams effectively. This one says 12 grams of beta hydroxybutrate. The interesting thing is this one's non-racemic, so this 12 grams is effectively 6 grams of D. This doesn't tell you how many ketones are in there, but we are able to do the math based on working backwards on salt, because who would add extra salt to an already super sky high salt product? And this is effectively 8 grams approximately of the D form. So it doesn't have, they didn't take the whole 12 grams and make a D form, because that would be twice as effective. So they just moved the needle, made it 30-40% more effective. Now the interesting thing is the ketone salts versus the ketone esters. The ketone esters are actually less expensive on a gram per effective gram, and I'll go into that later, of ketones. So it's actually less expensive. It's just you happen to be able to take 6 times more of this, and one serving is technically, for us, 30 grams of ketones, whereas this one has 8 grams. So it's up to you. If you want to take a fraction of the ketone ester, it would be actually less expensive. But again, this stuff tastes better. So this one is the best on the market. I've told people, I don't make any money. That's what you buy if you're going to buy anything. The next best one is kind of a neat product from Keto Sport called Keto Blitz. And what they did is they lowered the pH. Instead of making it buffered 1-to-1, one ketone acid to one salt, they made it approximately, they took out half of the salt or left half of the acid. So they lowered the pH, still fine for your stomach. So then this one has half of the salt load approximately of their own product, their own regular product. So that allows you to do one of two things. You can either take twice as many ketones into your system, or you can cut your salt load in half. However, given the options of cutting your salt load in half, which one would I pick? Well, this one cuts your salt load in half, but then you're only getting the D form, versus this one is still racemic, the D and the L. So this one is still a clear winner. But all the other products are massive amounts of salt, and they're racemic. So then the debatable part about this racemic concept. So Dr. Beach said not to touch it with a 10-foot pole, and he's been doing this for 40 years and talked about racemic 20, 30 years ago in his papers. It's just unknown what is happening to the L form. The D form is what's bioavailable. The L form stays in the system longer. They've done some papers, tracking how it's excreted, and it's just not worth the unknown of that side. So, his opinion was stick with the D form. That's what the body can use. And some people have actually debated that, saying that the L form can convert to D. I actually know of unpublished papers where they drank just the L form and tested human blood, and no D form came from it. When you have the blood ketone meter test, those will only test for the D form. It won't even test for L. So you've got to do that separately if you want to have that tested. But there is one paper out that says that suckling mice converted some of the L form to the D form. Well, there's a reason why they use suckling mice, not even regular mice. And suckling mice, because it doesn't work in regular mice, suckling mice have nothing in common with humans. So it just doesn't convert to the D form. Some people might say it might help with weight loss because it stays in the system longer because your body can't use it. Maybe. Someone else, Seafried, said that maybe it'll help, certain conditions because the body can't use the L form, possibly. And so that's, information that, will further research the time will tell. But eventually you'll see more of these products moving to the D form, the R form of beta hydroxybutrate. And, it's just the beginning. All the RACEMICs will shift over once the price, starts to come down, because the price is the issue. To make something just one form and to take out the other form is just wildly expensive. It used to be 50 to 100 times more expensive. And now, we're getting to maybe twice as expensive, half as expensive. But again, the Ketone Ester, which is the D form, non-RACEMIC, so you get double bang for your buck. You get the D form only, and you get no salts. And I have told people actually with the Ketone Ester, you actually should take some salt. So it's kind of interesting. The Ketone Ester might doesn't have any salt in it by default. We actually started putting just a little bit in there because the body needs salt, but it's kind of confusing, having a Ketone Ester with salt. So we haven't, put too much. But I tell people to take salts, and sometimes they will mix it with some non-RACEMIC ketone salts to get the sodium and potassium that they need for, an athletic performance. I also tell people sometimes there's these salt electrolyte pills that are sugar-free, and they'll add those to the drink, or they'll take it separately. So there is benefits to the salt itself. One other quick marketing trick with some of these companies, that they'll say that they have 11 grams, and then another company will say that it's a giant amount of ketones and it's 14 grams. Well, the trick is they actually counted the weight of the salt. So it's not 14 grams of ketones, it's 14 grams of ketone salts. So they're adding the ketone and the salt, which is 3 grams of salt, so it looks like it's more. There's one company that says we have 3 times more ketones than some of our competitors, not the leaders, some of our competitors. Well, there's one competitor that actually is selling 3-gram servings of ketone salts, which, hey, if it works for you, great. So then this company is able to say, they have 3 times more than somebody else, but they have the same maximum amount as, all the other companies. So I find that humorous. Other tricks, the Ketone Ester and ketone salts and all exogenous ketones actually don't kick you out of, they stop endogenous ketone production. So your body overnight, 12 hours, has been slowly making ketones. And then the moment that you drink any of these exogenous ketones, the body stops. Now think about it. It's the exact opposite of what you've heard in some of these companies that are, saying, oh, you're, sitting on your butt watching TV and you drink this drink and look, you're burning fat and I can prove it to you because there's blood ketones, running through your blood. No. That's completely misleading. That's part of the problem with allowing thousands of people to be able to market a product and not have to follow the rules. If your body is making or starving, fasting for multiple days or even overnight, and it's making this emergency fuel, the moment that it drinks an energy source, whether it's glucose or ketones, the body doesn't need to make it anymore. It just stops. It stops making it. So anybody who talks about, it making or putting you into ketosis, yeah, it's putting you into exogenous ketosis, which a phrase no one talks about. They say exogenous ketones and endogenous ketones, but what they should be talking about is also exogenous ketosis and endogenous ketosis, which means the state of starvation where your body's pulling or creating ketones by burning fat, that is endogenous, your body's making it internally, versus exogenous ketosis, which means you've drank exogenous ketones and then it's coming up and showing up in your blood. A lot of people, don't know about that. Let's see what else. That's pretty much the secrets behind the ketone salts. And I will be doing another FAQ about the different types of ketone esters, different companies that are out there. Not many. There will be more, but right now, if you go to Amazon, there's hundreds of different companies, selling the ketone salts, and most of them are all racemic. But hopefully, this is September 8th, 2018, and before long, there will be a lot more of the D form, and they are more palatable than the esters, at least right now. All right, thank you.